Spiritual pussy enthusiasts. Pussy enthusiast.
I am everything a God is and a God is not.
So what is Gnosticism anyway? It is a religion of understanding. Gnostic means one who understands. Gnosis is a special kind of understanding about the nature of the world that comes to one from outside of oneself, from outside of the world. It is true knowledge of the world. And the Gnostics claimed to possess this. And it's a very peculiar kind of knowledge because it divides one from the world. Essentially, the message of Gnosticism is that man is a stranger in this universe, that we have no business here, that in fact this universe is the creation of an inferior being, a mad God, if you will, and that we are somehow trapped in a situation not of our own making. And it is for the Gnostic to, number one, understand this, and then number two, to do something about it. And first of all, the gaining of this understanding was through ecstasis, perhaps drugs, although I am myself so associated with drugs that I don't want you to get the impression that I am making a case that there is any evidence that Gnosticism was a hallucinogenic-based movement. It may have been, but there is no evidence for it. There is greater evidence that there may have been sexual techniques and practices used to induce ecstasy. But again, even this is very thin because the most flamboyant charges of sexual practices are those laid against the Gnostics by their enemies. And in fact, until 1948, everything that we knew about Gnosticism we knew from studying attacks upon it. The fathers of the early church, Origen, Justinian, Tertullian, Irenaeus, Clementine, Justin, the patristic fathers, were at great pains to refute Gnosticism, and in fact their intense preoccupation with the refutation of Gnostic ideas is a major clue to how important these ideas were in the situation where embryonic Christianity was taking form. It's in the writings of Eusebius and Hippolytus that the most outlandish descriptions of Gnostic practices are met with. In those same works, we meet recitations of Gnostic prayers that in fact do coincide with later texts recovered from different sources. So the question of how apt a description of Gnostic practice we get from the patristic heresiologists has to remain a very open one. Now, this is a situation which you would think would lie fallow. This is an ideological religious movement that by the 6th century was largely crushed out within the confines of the empire. However, in 1948, at a place called Nag Hammadi in Upper Egypt, near a Coptic monastery called Chenoboskian, people were feeding their goats and digging in the side of the hill, and they came upon large clay jars filled with manuscript. And they took this stuff back to their house. They were goat herders. They needed to make tea, so they burned a number of the manuscripts immediately to make tea and discuss what should be done with the rest of them. Well, it's a very long story, but when it filtered to the surface, there were 52 texts that had gone into the ground AD 350, and so had never been touched by the patristic reformation of the church, the councils of Nicaea, Antioch, and Trent. This stuff existed completely sealed away from the evolution of Christian hermeneutics from the patristic period forward. And now all of this material has been translated, and it composes a corpus which is called by scholars the Nag Hammadi Library. And these 42 texts are like a window back into the world of Hellenistic Gnosis, and it raises very serious problems for Christian theology generally, for a number of reasons. We knew from Qumran that there was a document called Q that appeared to be the source of both Luke and Matthew, and older than both. Now at Nag Hammadi, the Gospel of Thomas has emerged. It also is obviously very closely related to this document Q, which precedes the other two Gospels. And the picture which emerges of Christ is very much at variance with the notion that has come down through time. To give you a bit of background on this, most scholars believe that Christ was born in 6 AD and died in 27 BC. There's new arguments that he may have been crucified as late as 33. However, there is no argument that there are no gospel sources older than AD 70. So basically there's a 35-year lacuna where we don't know what Christianity was or even if it existed. And into this lacuna come the documents like the Gospel of Thomas and the Q document from Qumran, which cast great light, great doubt on the traditional picture that's emerged of Christology. So that's only one aspect of the challenge of the Gnostics. The other is to come to terms with their worldview and to try to make sense of it. And this is really what the body of my talk tonight is about, because we are, if we accept Spengler's notion that the Hellenistic era is somehow an adumbration or a temporal resonance of our own, then we as moderns standing as we do on the brink of star flight, are in a position to essentially realize the Gnostic cosmology, because what the Gnostic cosmology consisted of was the notion that having fallen so deeply into physis, having fallen so deeply into matter, man had become subject to fate in the form of stellar demons. And the Gnostic interpretation of astrology was entirely negative. For the Gnostic, the machinery of stellar fate was horrifying, deterministic. It reinforced the Gnostic notion that the universe is an iron prison into which man has fallen and must fight his way out. And so they believed that at death, the spark of the higher and invisible God, whose presence was nowhere apparent in this universe except in the soul of man, that spark would make its journey through the spheres back outside the machinery of cosmic fate to be reunited with what was called the higher and hidden All-Father. And there was great stress laid on the alienness of the hidden God and of the alienness of man in relationship to the world. And if any of you were present for my lecture called Alien Love, where I discussed the notion of alienness generally and its relationship to the extraterrestrial, in Gnosticism, specifically in the schools of Gnosticism associated with Marcion, you get this first enunciation of the notion of the strange or alien God. And it's a very peculiar idea, which Gnosticism carried forward within itself until the very end. It's an idea which is reinforced, I think, in modernity by the psychedelic experience. Commentators on Gnosticism like Hans Jonas have made cases that Heideggerian existentialism, strangely enough, was actually the modern heir to Gnosticism, but that it was a Gnosticism stripped of all mythology, but maintaining the central notion of man being cast into the universe, being cut off from his true home, being involved in a redemptive struggle for which he had no help from the outside. But I think actually that we can sort of go beyond that, or see that as a very simple form of Gnosticism, and see that actually the psychedelic faith that has grown up in postmodern or recent modern society is this faith, the reemergence of this faith in understanding. It is not, and some people have made the case that Gnosticism was a kind of proto-science because it has this faith in understanding. But I think Gnosticism's horror of matter, its viewing of all material projections as demonic and somehow interfering with transformation, makes it a poor candidate for a proto-science. It is more a kind of proto-existential psychology. Now, we are in a situation where I think dualism is a very hard thing for us to avoid. For instance, I have often spoken on my enthusiasm for space travel and transforming man out of the monkey body and into some kind of machine-like hyperspatial biomechanical logos. Well, this kind of extreme anti-naturalism is present in Gnosticism. In fact, Kurt Rudolph in his book Gnosis refers to it as an anti-cosmic dualism. He contrasts it between the Greek belief in a cosmos, a beautiful, ordered, symmetric whole where man has his place and the logos flows from the demiurgus into man, and a vision of balance and harmony, into the Gnostic vision, which is of man being trapped. Now, it's very hard to know which way to go with that. Space travel is a Gnostic undertaking. In fact, the entire phenomenon of modern technological transformation is a highly Gnostic phenomenon. We have accepted the premise, essentially, that there is no ethical imperative from nature. And in fact, Jean-Paul Sartre articulates this absolutely. He says, nature is mute. And that's a Gnostic position if there ever was one, because what it's saying is, you can drain the lakes, you can chop down the forests, you can do all these things. Nature is a demonic production. Its highest destiny is to be used by human beings to free themselves from it.